In this video, I decided to follow my own advice and pick up a book I talked about for investment. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another video with Swaggle Haas. And in this video, I got an unboxing to do with you guys as I decided to pick up a book that I talked about as an investment pick in a video I did the other week. So I'm very happy to open this up and have this in my collection. And then later on in the video, I'm going to talk about this character and maybe some other books and characters that could potentially relate to this one here. But before I get into the unboxing, if you guys could drop me a like or comment or subscribe if you're enjoying the content, helps support the channel, do one of those things, I would appreciate it. But let's get right into it, right? You know, it's always fun to unbox stuff with you guys. And, you know, it's funny because as I make these videos, you know, I have to hold my books when I get them in the mail. Like I'm so excited to open them and I want to open them right away, or like, you know, put them on the wall or do things with them. But I always have to wait because I feel like, you know, it's important to do it for the YouTube channel, for the unboxing, and then frame a conversation around it because I think this is a really cool book. And I, you know, talked about it as a investment pickup for, you know, street level villains. And later on in the video, I'm going to talk about some other interesting factors with regards to this particular book because, you know, I think like there's a lot of characters that I'm always thinking about. There's a lot of books that I'm always looking at. And, you know, when I make videos, I can only talk about certain ones that I feel confident if I'm doing like a spec thing or I'm doing an investment thing, because I personally see the breadcrumbs being led to these books potentially popping off in the market. So in this video, I kind of wanted to do a little something different where I talk about some other characters and other interesting books that I still think are great, but I wouldn't promote them as invest in these books now because honestly, I don't have the same sort of confidence, or I don't necessarily see these books getting super hot like in the near future or anything like that. But I still think that they are great books overall, and they relate to this character here. So I figured that would be a good way to frame it all together. But the book that I decided to pick up for my collection is this one right here, which is The Hood #1. First appearance of the character known as the Hood, Parker Robbins. This is a book that I've wanted to have in my collection for a long time. The Hood is a great character, one that I think has a lot of potential in the MCU. Again, I always talk about, you know, board games and transmedia, and I've been noticing the Hood and a lot of other properties, and that has me really excited about, you know, his potential and some of the other characters that I want to also talk about in this video. But before we get into those characters, we got to talk about the sponsor of this video, MySlabs.com. Now, for those who don't know, MySlabs.com is an online marketplace that specializes in graded collectibles. They do a lot of stuff in the sports card world, but they also do a lot of great comic books. And the best thing about MySlabs.com is, as you can see right there in the header, 1% fees for sellers. So sellers can keep more in their pockets when they're moving their books, and presumably buyers can get better deals as a result. But let me play this little commercial about MySlabs, and I will see you guys on the other end.
Tired of paying 10%, 15% or more to sell your cards, comics, and digital collectibles? How does 1% sound? Too good to be true? Well, not anymore. MySlabs.com is the web's premier user-driven marketplace for buying and selling slabbed cards, sealed wax, and now slabbed comics and digital collectibles. So the next time you're forced to pay 10% or more to sell something from your collection, head over to MySlabs.com and join the 1% revolution.
Definitely go check out MySlabs.com and see if it's a marketplace for you. All right, with that said, let us get into the video topic for today. And again, you know, these are just some interesting characters that relate to Parker Robbins, the Hood. Now, for those who don't know, just as a quick recap, the Hood is kind of like a street level villain. He's got those, you know, kingpin organization aspirations. So he puts together a lot of those, you know, B tier villains to do like more organized crime. And there's some books that I've been, you know, having my eye on overall for characters that relate to the Hood. I don't necessarily know if these characters are going to show up or if they're, you know, good, interesting spec. But these are books that I just kind of wanted to talk about if you will, you know, indulge me and allow allow me to talk about comic books, because that's what I like to do. I like to talk about comic books. So the first one I just wanted to talk about here is Iron Man number 12. And what is the significance of this? Well, of course, this is the first appearance of the character known as the Controller. Like most Iron Man villains, the Controller sort of specializes in, technology and science and things like that. So he was sort of a electromechanical engineer who specialized in chemical, research, but he was obsessed with control. And for that reason, he was sort of shunned from the scientific community. And, in order to get back at all of them, he became that villain. The other thing that's interesting about the Controller is that he's actually had interactions with Thanos. So not to say that that would be, a connection to the MCU, but it is an interesting fact for this character's backstory. Additionally, he was also involved in the Armor War storylines. And of course, like all these books do, the Controller has had a history with the Hood. All right, let's talk about another one of these books that I think are interesting as they relate to the Hood. Iron Man 17 from 1969. But what is the significance of this? Well, this is the first appearance of Madame Mask. And I feel like Madame Mask is a really interesting character. I think she has a lot of potential simply because of her character design. I mean, she's sort of got that whole like Phantom of the Opera aesthetic going on. And I feel like that could be, something that's really iconic to the MCU. And Madame Mask actually becomes the love interest of the Hood character. So it feels like if we're going to get the Hood in the MCU, they would definitely introduce Madame Mask. Madame Mask has also been rumored for shows over the years. People talked about her for Hawkeye. Doesn't look like we're going to get her. I had considered talking about, this book in my Street Villain books to invest in, but it felt like, if they were to bring her in, they would definitely go by way of the Hood. So that's why I decided to talk about the Hood book instead. But still, with that all being said, I do think that this is a great pickup and one that I definitely have my eye on. All right, the next book I want to talk about here is one that I'm sure you guys know very well. This, of course, is Daredevil number 4, a book that I feel like is really underappreciated in the market for a character who I also think is really underappreciated. The Purple Man, of course, famously was played by David Tennant in the Jessica Jones season 1 series. And I gotta say, of all the villain performances there were in all of comic book properties, films, TV shows, etc., I gotta say, and I might be biased, I think David Tennant did one of the best villains there is in all of, comic book shows. I mean, I think his execution of the Purple Man was so genius. It was so enthralling. And, again, like I said, I might just be a little bit biased because I'm a big fan of Doctor Who and a big fan of David Tennant. But I really like the character of the Purple Man. And, nobody has really mentioned, the Purple Man as being a character that could reappear in the MCU, but I feel like we need him. I feel like we could use David Tennant. And I think David Tennant, because of his, history with the Doctor Who character, just really fits nicely into, the pop culture nerd fandom. And it would be really cool to see the Purple Man back as a street level villain because there's a lot you can do with him. And, he's a really dangerous character. So I like this book, Daredevil number 4, first appearance of the Purple Man, and definitely would be one that I would pick up if I found the right one for me, and another character that has been involved with the Hood. All right, the next book I want to talk about here is Journey into Mystery number 99. And what is the significance of this? Well, of course, this is the first appearance of Mr. Hyde. Now, if you're a Thor fan out there, you definitely know about Mr. Hyde. And Mr. Hyde, I feel like, is a villain who just hasn't quite hit it yet in that pop culture space. Like, I feel like he's got all the tools to be a little more iconic, but he just, hasn't quite fit his niche, or he hasn't quite had that big storyline to be involved in. But he's been utilized in Marvel comic books for a very long time and has had, of course, all these characters here, interactions with the Hood. And I like Mr. Hyde. I'm going to talk about a book later on here that is the one before this one, and Mr. Hyde, his partner in crime, his villain partner in crime. But I like this character. Again, not necessarily one that I think is going to show up anytime soon, but because this is a Journey into Mystery book, like an early Silver Age book, I think this one is still a classic and one that I would absolutely pick up if I found the right one for me. This one, of course, Journey into Mystery number 99. All right, going on to the next book I want to talk about here, again, for other characters I think are interesting as they relate to the Hood, is Submariner number 5. And of course, this is the first appearance of Tiger Shark. Tiger Shark, you can see right there on the cover, is a character who I believe his backstory was he was an Olympic swimmer who lost his ability to swim and then kind of, She-Hulk Jennifer Walters style. He kind of got like the blood transfusion of Namor, and that sort of made him this like shark hybrid underwater swimmer villain thing. Not really sure why he had his heel turn, but I think that this is still a cool character. And as we talk about Namor keys and as Namor comes into the MCU, this is another character I definitely have had my eye on. And I think that this character is sort of like a comic collector's fan favorite. I feel like, you know, hardcore old school comic collectors really like Tiger Shark. And I think this, and that makes sense to me. I mean, I think this is a cool book. It's a great cover, sort of very, very classic comic book to me. You know, seeing the superhero rescue the damsel in distress with like the, you know, muhaha villain right there. I feel like this is comic book personified on this cover. And so that's one of the reasons I absolutely love this one, but definitely one that I've been keeping my eye on for. All right, the next couple characters I want to talk about as characters that, you know, relate to the Hood is this one right here, Journey into Mystery, number 107, first appearance of the Gray Gargoyle. Now, this is a book I've definitely talked about on this channel before. I own a couple copies of this one. Unlike some of the other ones, which I'm looking out for, these next couple books are ones that I do already own. But these are all books that I would pick up again because these are books that I really do believe in. But this one right here, first appearance of the Gray Gargoyle, he's a really interesting character. Anything he touches turns to stone. And I feel like, you know, even though he's a little bit comedic with like his powers and, you know, it's kind of like a jobber who's been tossed around by all the heroes, I feel like there's an interpretation of him that could be really well done and almost really scary. Like, I feel like the fact that he can turn people into stone is pretty horrifying overall. So I could see, like, you know, the MCU doing a really good take on him as a character, and that could be something that's really, really interesting. So this is a book that I really like. I think is, you know, definitely worth having in anyone's collection. Additionally, this is also the first appearance of Carnilla, who is a character that relates to the Thor mythos. So that's like a twofer with this one. All right, the next book here that I wanted to talk about is one that, you know, I had been alluding to when I was talking about Mr. Hyde, but this, of course, is Journey into Mystery, number 98. This was a book that I've talked about, you know, a few times on the channel before. I have a copy already, but this, of course, is the first appearance of the human Cobra, later becomes King Cobra, Klaus Voorhees. And this is a cool character, and sort of like some of the other characters that I've been talking about here, I feel like it's just, you know, one step below being, you know, a lot more famous or a lot more successful. Just hasn't quite had, you know, the shine that the character needs to take that next step. But Cobra has been involved in so many storylines over the years. Of course, he paired with Mr. Hyde against Thor, and they were sort of like this dynamic villain duo for many issues back in the day. They would go on to battle Daredevil. They would go on to battle Spider-Man. Cobra would then, you know, be a big member of the Serpent Society, which I think is, you know, really suited for him. So I like a lot of the possibility of him as a character, maybe, you know, showing up in the MCU. But again, you know, I just don't know if we're necessarily going to see him, you know, if we get the Serpent Society. I think that is going to go to some of the other characters. But again, another book that I think is a great Silver Age book that should be in everyone's collection. All right, two more characters that, you know, I just wanted to talk about because, you know, I'm excited. I love the Hood. I'm glad I picked up this book. So I think that it's interesting to talk about, you know, characters that relate to him. But this one right here, Avengers number 34, this is the first appearance of the Living Laser. Another, you know, sort of Iron Man villain who, you know, specializes in technology. He has this suit that, of course, shoots lasers, as you would expect from his name, the Living Laser. But another character I feel like, you know, could show up in a series like Armor Wars. I feel like this is a character that has had a long history in Marvel comic books, has been involved in a lot of storylines, and, you know, has just a lot of potential. And I think that this one right here, Avengers 34, you can see Living Laser right here on the lower left. I think that this is just a great book to have, a great character to have. And, you know, the Living Laser is one that, you know, continues to be utilized in comic books, especially with the Iron Man storylines. So one that I think is a great pickup. All right, and the last character I wanted to talk about, I'm going to talk about actually two books in tandem. This one here is Tales to Astonish number 50, which is the first appearance of the Human Top, and Avengers number 46, which is the first appearance of Whirlwind. Now, the Human Top is, this is the older of the two books. This was from the, Giant Man, Wasp, Tales to Astonish run. But this one right here is the first appearance of the Human Top, who is a mutant that has the ability to, spin really fast and whirl around. There you see him on the cover doing as such. And later would then become Whirlwind in this book right here, Avengers 46, which, of course, Whirlwind would go on to be like one of the biggest B-tier villains there is, showing up in all the Avengers books. How many covers feature, I feel like, Whirlwind and Melter and Claw on them, going up against the Avengers. I really like this character overall, and I like these two books in tandem, depending on how you fall on the, debate of like, oh, do we like the Human Top as the first appearance, or do we like it when he actually becomes Whirlwind right here? But regardless, I think that these are two great books to have in your collection, and a character, again, that has connections to the Hood, and also connections to many other things like the Avengers and Wasp and things like that. So I really like these books. Well, that is all I have for this video. That was just me kind of talking about, I'm not going to say that these are books, to spec on or invest in, but just great characters, great books that I think are interesting as they relate to the Hood right here, which is my new pickup in my collection. I definitely think that this is a great book that I talked about, of course, in my street level villains to invest in. Anyways, that's all I have for this video. Drop me a like, comment, subscribe if you're enjoying the content, and I'll see you in the next one.